What is up, Fortnite fam? We are here for week number 2 of the FNCS. There is another 15 spots up for grabs, and last week we watched some high-profile trio teams make it through in the first 15 spots, while others looked on the outside bubble in 16th through 20th that did not make the cut. With a second shot, can they qualify this week? Well, we'll find out together. What's going on, everybody? My name is Zeke, and joining us here on the analyst desk, we've got Shy Wager and Reese, who will be handling all of our analyst stuff. Guys, it's another week. We got more Fortnite action on deck. You guys gotta be hyped, right?
I'm hyped. I'm hot. I'm ready to see week number 2 flow underway. It's going to be Europe that we're going to be watching first. And man, based off of last week, as you said, Zeke, there's no reason not to be super hyped.
I know I cannot match Shio's kind of anticipation, his body movement, his excitement that way, but I can up here, and I am very, very excited. We saw some great games last week. There's some huge pop-off moments, stuff that we really like to see. My personal favorite, Thomas HD, doing very, very well, doing an entire solo endgame by himself. I hope we see something similar to that this week, some of these huge kind of pop-off Twitter moments. But so fingers crossed for this week, and I'm just excited to get into the games.
Whew, fingers crossed, baby. Now, of course, guys, we know what you want, games. Now, we do have our players and trios are boarding the battle bus as we speak. So when they're ready to go, we'll be hopping into games. So with this little window we have here, let's go ahead and talk about the show itself. We're here taking a deep look into all things EU. There'll be a 45-minute break later on, and then we'll dive into NA East. And we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, for more action there. Let's go ahead and talk about the tournament itself. And what we can expect heading on into this. Now, don't forget, new clean graphic. We got round number 3. That's where we're at, where the top 15 teams will advance on through to heats. You can see there, again, another 6 matches across 2 days, where only the top 8 teams will advance. Shy, why is the top 8 so important?
Top 8 is so important because that's what you want to do to make heats. That's what you want to do from the heats to go to grands. But past that, there's a wild card match if you don't make top 8 in the heats. This is for those teams from 9th to 16th place. This is one match where the winner will advance and take the last slot. As exciting, I would say, as those grand finals that'll play over 2 days. 6 matches each for those as well. But man, what a format.
What a format. Man, I'm already getting hyped. I got to control myself. Got to control the happiness that is trying to release itself. Now, of course, we're going to keep the ball rolling. Let's not forget we do have the overall point format. Now, Reese, this is kind of something we have been seeing, and we've even seen in previous competitions. These point values weighted more to the victory out and placement overall. You can hit a single point landing 17th, but the placement points are pretty important, right?
It's very tough for a team to come in at 17th, play that whole game out, and only get 1 placement point. We've seen already there's 25 placement points available, but those elimination points are still equally as important. On NA East, we saw Booga's team not really get that many eliminations, but have by far the highest average placement points out there. But they still didn't manage to clinch up that first place slot because they needed more eliminations. So, despite the fact this is a very, very placement heavy format, you still need to be making sure you pick up enough eliminations there too.
Well, let's see if here in week number 2 teams can pull that off. Now, don't forget, we are not only playing for the top 15 spots, but there's also some prize money on the line. Here is a breakdown across all of the regions. Now, guys, I think one of the biggest talking points, we kind of did talk a lot about it last week, is this contested versus uncontested drop spot specifically. What we found was that a lot of these teams and trios that are uncontested end up in the top 15 more reliably in standings. Do we think this is going to be playing another factor this week? Because remember, this round 3 is going to be different than last week's round 3, right? We're going to be seeing different trios this time around.
I completely do. I think this is going to be something we're going to see every single week, all of the time, through all the weeks, through the heats, through the grand finals as well. And it's going to be a little bit more difficult this week for those teams who are contested because the people that they're being contested by may have already qualified last week. So those players who may have already qualified last week may be interested in saying, hey, guys, I want to alpha up this drop spot. We want to ensure this is ours. You do not want to land here either in day 2, week 3, heats, grand finals, whatever it is. We are owning this drop spot. So these fights in the early games are going to be really, really interesting. And, we may see some storm pushes. Just quite honestly, interested to see how it goes. But uncontested, it's going to be the way forward.
Oh man. Well, don't forget, guys, we did have some of the regions wrap up. So we're going to take a look at OCE, see how things went for them. Now, big point of note here, it is only the top 8 here in OCE and Asia and ME that will be moving on. New Batoon, Cypher, and Geese. Shy Wager Geese. I mean, we've seen so much out of right now, starting strong in the first 6 matches, 114 points, but only 2 points ahead of the second place trio.
I mean, what's more impressive for me is that these guys actually did not qual in week number 1, and now they're in first coming through in week number 2, day number 1. So that's really cool to see. Past that, too, we're looking at, as you mentioned, Zeke, the kind of point differential. It is very close for all these different trios. In this top five specifically, there's not that much of a spread. There's 4 winners here, too. So it's looking a little bit top heavy, as usual, in OCE.
Indeed. 4 victory royales placed in the top 5. I'm not sure what that 5th victory royale is, but it's actually there. It is coming up from Jinx, Alec, and Worthy. That's week 1's winner. They're very, very, very dominant performance week 1, but they didn't seem to be able to kind of replicate that this week. They had some really, really good games in there, but kind of were knocked out in the mid game a few times this week. So it really depends.
Yeah, and that 8th place team as well, Sorif, Carrion, and Eshes. These guys, I think, actually qualified in week number 1 with Slaya, now playing with Carrion and are in 8th place. So I'm wondering what that trio switch is about, what's going on over here. Maybe there's a very cheeky name change, but we'll have to dive into that and see what's going on. Still, there's some type of drama. There's still some type of action, big heated competition in OCE. Past that, though, there are some other regions too, Zeke.
That's right. Let's flip on over to Asia, see who is holding down that number 1 spot. And once again, it is the top 8 teams here that will be moving on. We have Macy Fishy and Shinky Fishy. Very different point spread here in Asia.
Very, very different. And the thing that I think we're all looking at, victory royales. First place, 2 victory royales. Second place of Rex, Peter Pan, and Crash Pad, 1 pump, 2 victory royales. Third place, 2 victory royales, right? Are they going to be able to continue this all the way through day 2?
I mean, this is off of changes as well. We saw Macy Fishy and his trio not really play that well at all in week number 1. They were 19th overall cumulatively, now in first in day number 1 again. So the same thing we saw in OCE. Rex as well, 9th place, didn't get to qualify, switched up his trio, and now with Peter Pan and Crash Pad Pump, he's in second overall with these big wins. So Asia's making these changes. Still, Reese, it's a top 8 game.
It's a top 8 game, and in 6th place, we've got QJack, Wildhack, and Nator. Again, this is the team who placed first in week 1. So on OCE and Asia, the people who won week 1 are already in 6th place, kind of reflecting that exact same thing. No victory royales, so maybe they were contested this day, maybe there's more teams around them, maybe they're just struggling a little more in the early and mid game.
Nice little snapshot that will lead us into today's competition. Now, guys, round 2 is actually pretty wild. There was a lot of these trios that we're used to seeing, and even some new faces that are kind of pushed on through to this round, now round number 3, and we're going to be seeing them compete. So walk us through some of the trios that we should be keeping our eyes on as we watch today and tomorrow's competition.
For me, you'll hear a little bit more about them afterwards from myself as well. Mitro, Mongol, Tayson, who came first place overall in round number 2 for EU, are going to be playing today, coming all the way from Starks as well. They were looking so good. I think it was about 4 or 5 different plus 10 elimination games. Some of them also, or most of them, being wins. So for me, this is the squad kind of to look out for. This is the trio that I really want to see do well today.
I agree. They can definitely do it as well. I'm really looking at Flick and Ask Thomas HD in terms of these semis. They performed really, really well in the semifinals last week, and in the warm-ups, they placed second overall. So interesting to see how they play coming up.
That's right. Here we go. We do have some of the gameplay as well to kind of get you up to speed on what happened around number 2. So let's take a look together.
Yeah, we mentioned a few of these trios. They place towards that top 10, top 5 slot right now. Steelix, Yaita, and Snag Demon on your screen, playing low ground very efficiently. Now, we've seen this pattern so far in EU, even in NA East a little bit, of people that prefer low versus height. This is going to be another trio coming in trying to dominate that low ground race.
And they did it very, very well. They're second overall, and they actually managed to get an 18 elimination victory royale in their first game. And that's like something you're going to see more commonly out of teams who are landing in the playing endgame in the low ground. They're going to be usually able to pick up way more eliminations if they are really efficient box fighters, which obviously a ton of these guys in the top really always are.
Absolutely, but there's just so many teams that like to play low, so it might be dangerous. The best thing in my mind is always maybe to try and control height if you can get it. It is very risky. The people who took that risk multiple times were Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson, even taking as many risks as landing Stark every single game. You know, in those round twos, it can be contested by a team you'll never expect. They played so well, though, so well that they got first, even diving down to low at some point, starting off on low as well when they're in that half and half beforehand. Ultimately, though, ending on height, getting big beams, and as I said before, multiple 10-plus Elim victory royales.
And this is a team that it doesn't matter if they're low ground, it doesn't matter if they're mid ground, it doesn't matter if they're high ground. These guys are popping off, and these guys are taking huge names. Their average Elims was 12.13. The next highest was 9. So a huge difference between that and the next team.
Yeah, Anas Flick and Thomas HD, I would say the talk of the town from week number 1, now down to week number 2. Reese mentioned it in the warm-up, second overall. In gameplay, I would say first in the diversity they have of a sniper, a box fighter, and a hardcore IGL. You toss that all together on height, low ground, doesn't matter. They play so well. Past that, Astro, Hardfind, and Mexi. These guys were our low ground trio that we saw have some trouble in week number 1, but still placed very high.
You did. Sixth overall last week, which is a huge performance from them. And these guys are just really good when they're low ground. They're popping off hugely. And also a team we've just not seen last week at all, which was Scram, Refsguard, and Stompy. A team who I personally had as one of my favorites going in, but didn't end up qualifying for the finals. And these guys are landing down in Steamy Stacks and really have been performing very well in all of the tournaments that they've actually made it to the finals in, mainly third-party tournaments. So this is their first time getting into the finals at the FNCS. Obviously, last time wasn't last week, so I'm interested to see how they play out.
Yeah, they have that unique momentum in the fact that they don't have that experience in week number 1. They have that drive that no one else does in the fact that they're here new in week number 2. So when Zeke mentioned there's some new faces, this is one new big face that we have to watch coming into these games.
That's right, man. And I think something you touched on, Reese, is actually something really cool to think about. And that is kind of talking about the breakdown of POIs, right? We're thinking about all these rounds kind of happening. If you're trying to alpha up on a POI and you're saying, okay, let's say Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson, you guys want that POI? Well, we're going there too. And we're going to show you in round number 3 of week number 2 that that's where we're going. And so now there's this mind game of like, okay, well, if they make it to heats, are we going there? Are we changing it up? There's this constant back and forth. And that's what I love so much about Fortnite and these competitive settings. It's just, there's so much, it's like a chess game. You know, it's like, all right, what do I do now? Are they thinking 6 steps ahead? Am I 6 steps behind? For me, it's usually 6 steps behind for me.
You mentioned chess game. For me, like, especially with all these rounds, grand finals and heats, like you're breaking down, Zeke, it's like a chess game on top of 2 chess games, so 3D chess inside a 5D chess game. It's games on top of games, inside games, Gameception, Game Stellar. I don't know what we're talking about, but we can watch it as it happens. It's always so glorious to break down.
It's absolutely incredible. Thank you for that, Shio. You are a treasure. Let's talk about our predictions kind of heading into week number 2. Let's break this down together, gents, and make our claim. So Sundown was first this week. He went with BL's Hen, Decyptos, and Patrick as his trio to win out week number